Before I really start, I want to give props to my first teacher, Isaias Agar. Many of you are familiar with his work. He's an amazing man. He's a street artist, a social activist, and a total visionary. I found his work in 1990 when I was on a trip to and it just blew my mind, and some of you who've been my students before know this story. I mean, I had seen mosaics in churches in Europe and in the United States, but I had never really seen this put together in this same way. So I wrote him a letter, and I said, you know, I'm going to introduce myself, and I said, I'd really like to come and learn what you do. And he invited me to come to Philadelphia and be his apprentice, and I was his first student, and he's had thousands of students since that time. And he really made a big impression on me. And part of what he does with his work is he works on a very monumental scale, and he engages people as he works in the public sphere, among many, many other things. So I like to give props. I do have a production studio called True Mosaic Studio. I'm not going to talk too much about the work that I do through my commissioned work. And I also have a studio practice where I do my own work as well. And this is one of the pieces that kind of illustrates how I bring different materials and concepts together in my personal work. And I do like to explore sort of diametrically opposed concepts like beauty and ugliness and chaos and order and celebration and decay. And so this piece kind of explores that through its use of materials, in that I have combined asphalt from the street that I cut on a saw with materials that I feel are very beautiful. And so this kind of concept kind of informs what inspires me in the world. I think something very, very off-putting like asphalt could be considered very ugly, although in my exploration with that material I have found it to be actually a very beautiful material, and a material that has a lot of potential. And I think the concept of potential is something that has really informed a lot of my work through the Global Mosaic Project. Here's another slide that shows the type of commissioned work that I've done over the years. The Global Mosaic Project's mission is to bring community-based public art, entrepreneurial training, art education to communities around the globe. And so this is done through participatory projects designed and implemented through social engagement. These projects foster community partnerships, economic development, and cross-cultural exchange. And so I tend to use the term community-based mosaics a lot because I think it's just a handy term, but there's a lot of other very much more, you know, cooler ways to say something like that. Social action, arts activism, social practice, dialogical art. There's a lot of sort of categories or ways to talk about this type of thing, but through my own values, what I would like to do through projects that happen through the Global Mosaic Project is to foster these things: inspiration, creative expression, and well-being. And I feel like these things are really tied into social action, even though they're not necessarily overtly political concepts. They can actually become political in different contexts. So what I'm going to be showing you are photos and images from projects that illustrate some of these concepts, like social engagement and placemaking. Placemaking being, you know, obviously making a place out of a place that maybe wasn't so much of something that would draw people. I'll talk about facade improvement, greening the urban landscape, park rehabilitation, personal and community empowerment, creative expression in public health. This is what I've been thinking about a lot, as well-being, being a social justice issue. And I will talk about social action and activism, again, touching on personal and community empowerment, water security, marriage equality, neighborhood beautification, and nonviolence. So the projects that I'll be showing you, out of the projects that I've facilitated, will illustrate some of these themes. I'll also talk about the ripple effect and how important that is, passing on skills and investing in the success of others. Also leaving something sustainable behind as well, and touch on briefly economic impact. So this is a project that I did in New Orleans with about 50 people. It's called You Are Here, and it's meant to be kind of a cosmic map. I've been making these little tiles that say You Are Here on them, so that as a reminder for people to say, where am I? Or how do you put yourself in the context of the larger world? And so this was a project where community who lived around this little pocket park, they formed this park out of an empty, blighted lot. that used to be public housing, and they turned it into a neighborhood park, and there was one cement wall in that park, and I decided that I would pitch the idea that I would facilitate a community project there, and some of the neighbors weighed in on what they would want depicted, and we did this project over the course of several months. I kind of put it in between the raindrops of my other projects, but it was a wonderful, wonderful project that really brought a lot of the community together, and people of all walks of life worked on the project, all ages. And we used about probably a third were actual recycled materials or materials that were donated by the neighbors. This was a completely, not even underfunded, pretty much non-funded project. What's one of the reasons why it took a little bit longer, but it was very, very rewarding. Pardon me. This is another placemaking type of a project where this was done during one of the Global Mosaic Project volunteerism trips. I started partnering with sustainable tour companies and taking groups of people to different parts of the world to do a project and collaborate with local community and teach as well. In this case, I took a group to Jacmel, Haiti, where I had worked many, many times before, and instead of me teaching people that were part of that tour, the youth that I taught were the teachers for the people that came in and participated in that tour, which was very rewarding for me as a teacher myself. And we did this mural in about 3 days. Very simple design, but the kids transferred the design onto the wall before we got there, and then we had about a 3-day, I call it a sting operation, where we would actually make that mural. And that mural has shown up in lots and lots of people's photos who have visited Jacmel as well. This is kind of a crossover project which touches again on placemaking and also art and public health. This was another Global Mosaic volunteerism trip hosted by an organization called EcoTeach in Costa Rica. And we did a mural in the back of the parking lot of a small medical clinic. Clinica La Fortuna, in the town of La Fortuna. And what we did is we took this wall, which was basically a crappy wall in the back of the parking lot, and we turned it into a beautiful mural, which the community was so excited about that they actually pooled their resources, a neighborhood group in that town, to buy a picnic table to put right there. So all of a sudden this became a place, okay? Not that it wasn't a place because people parked their cars there, but it became a place that people wanted to hang out and visit. We also trained local community members, and we also left our tools there so that this could be sustainable. And I had to cut a lot of slides out of this presentation because it was just too long. Thank you to Lillian Sizemore for helping me with that. But one of the things that I love doing is seeing images that from projects that people I've trained or people I've trained have done later. And one of the women who was tangentially involved in this project has gone on to become a mosaic artist from being like a line cook in at a guest house. And it was so great for me to see that on the Facebook the other day. This is a project in New Orleans on the facade of a building that sells recycled building materials called the Green Project. And this was a project that we did during a facilitator training class. And the Green Project said, sure, you can beautify our facade, that's great. And what we did is we used materials that they actually sold inside of that place. And so I wanted to do a design that kind of splashed across the very big facade actually, but also use what people might consider really ugly materials. You know, all that stuff that people are like, I'm gonna donate some tile to you. And then it's all tan and beige and totally non-exciting. But that stuff can turn into something a little more exciting, and that's really what I wanted to work with in this project. So all that material was actually from the Green Project. In terms of greening the urban landscape, this is something I'm very drawn to working in urban environments, and that word potential, that concept of potential comes up a lot for me, and seeing like a blank wall on a blighted street that has like, you know, cracked out neighborhood, you know, to me that's really inspiring because I see that there's potential there. This was a project that was actually a percent for our projects through the city of Oakland, California, but it had a community component in the design development, and there was nothing colorful at all. That was a totally scary, drug-addled neighborhood, and the design came out of discussions that I had with community members, kids that did these things called scraper bikes, where they would weave the wheels of their bikes in with these colored and metallic papers. And it also gave a nod to the community connections in the neighborhood, and it's on the facade of a firehouse. That firehouse was newly built, which is why it was a Percent for Art project, but when they took down the firehouse from the 1920s or 30s, in that rubble I was able to go, this is something that I enjoy doing, going through demolition sites with 5-gallon buckets and collecting materials from the old building like brick and asphalt from the street and concrete, and then reusing that in the new artwork. This is a park rehabilitation project. I work a lot with an organization called the Trust for Public Land, and they're wonderful. They do what's called Parks for the People, and they take, you know, sad parks in forgotten neighborhoods, and they turn them into beautiful places for kids to be and for people to hang out. And so this was a very, very quick and simple community project that engaged a lot of community. I also do what I call street training, which is when there's no classroom involved and there's nothing really formalized about that. That's something that I really, really value is being able to do things spontaneously and engage the public just like that. Like, hey, you think this is cool? You want to learn it? Okay, here. And I do that a lot. And this, you can see this was our classroom out here. We're just like basically sitting on the sidewalk. As I teach. These kids just elected to come. One of the neighborhood, you know, some popular lady in the neighborhood helped to rally them, and they executed the project. And so I'm not going to answer these questions, but I do like to pose these questions. When does beautification become activism? And how is this concept of social action, how does this tie into what some of us are doing? And when you're making like a pretty lovely thing and it's not overtly political or having an activist bent to it, but what about neighborhood beautification in a marginalized community that wouldn't necessarily ever have the funding or access to be able to get a lovely piece of artwork in their community? This was a mural that I facilitated in New Orleans after Katrina, and a neighbor, a guy, just hired me, basically not really, he said, I'll pay for materials, which I went for, if I would facilitate a community project on his wall. And which I did. It was very low risk. He didn't donate that much money for materials. And this is sort of one of my examples that I used in my Global Mosaic Project facilitator training class about making wine out of water when you want to have something colorful, but all you have access to is those tan tiles that everybody wants to give you, and how you can kind of sprinkle in some color. Also, this was a total drop-in project, like Renegade Street project, where there was no planning ahead of time as far as who was going to be involved. And the person that hired me to do the project, or pay for the materials rather, wanted me to leave areas in this mural that people and graffiti artists could come later and add to. And so these big circular areas in the mural, which you can kind of see in the drawing with the pink paint right there, were actually filled in later by other artists who contributed then to the project. I thought it was a cool idea. I love this quote by Sherry Warner Hunter, who is an amazing mosaic artist and sculptor and the former president of the Community Built Association in the United States. There's something wonderful about a community-built mosaic project. It doesn't just level the playing field, it completely elevates it, empowering participants with a sense of pride, accomplishment, and ownership. And that type of community empowerment, I believe, is also involved in social action. This is a project that I loved working on so much, and I did work with a group of youth that I've worked with many, many times in Haiti from an organization pardon me, called the Art Creation Foundation for Children. Their organization got a grant through the American Embassy to do a mural that was based on Martin Luther King's speech, I Have a Dream. And so I Have a Dream is translated to Mwen Yon Rev in Haitian Creole, and we initiated this project. The leadership talked to the youth about Martin Luther King, and then I facilitated a design session where we all had these wonderful rap sessions and went around and asked each of the kids, what is your dream? What do you want for your life? And culturally, it's not very common at all in Haiti for people to go around saying, I'm gonna manifest, you know, this, I'm gonna do this, I want this, to put this kind of visioning out. It's just not common. And so it was a wonderful exercise to hear what the kids had to say about what really they wanted for their lives. And then those ideas were translated into drawings, which were then collaged together to form this mural. And where's that little pointer thing? Is this a pointer? Yeah. What's gonna happen? Okay. So see these little areas right here? These were left blank and then painted with chalkboard paint. so that people could come in and write down words and include them in the mural. And then we also had a full blackboard that's off screen in that picture to the left, where people could come and actually write what their dreams were for the city of Jacmel. And this was, you'll see more about this group in a couple of minutes, but I was there for the design development process, but this group of youth I've worked with many, many times, and I was not even there for the execution. They are off training other people themselves, and it's just a wonderful thing. They're just going for it. I worked in Haiti I've done a lot of projects in Haiti since the earthquake. I started going there about 6 months after the earthquake, and I worked with Art Creation Foundation for Children and several other organizations, one being Sow a Seed. And Sow a Seed is a Haitian organization that promotes water security and economic development. This was a project that we did on the facade of an orphanage, where me and a couple other people from another project in Haiti trained these youth to make a mosaic mural. Again, it was a sting operation. A lot of these projects are really low budget, and so they can't go on and on and on. And so I call these sting operations. Again, if it's like, you know, a 3 or 4 day project, or maybe even a 2 day project, because that's all the budget will kind of even cover. And so it makes things kind of move along, that's for sure. But the concept behind this was planting seeds and water. And also, these orphanages that are supported by Sow a Seed have water stores. And see this little window on the bottom right? In Haiti, you can go to these little like kiosky, just little window in a building. It's usually just cement block and plain. And you can take your container, if you can afford it, and buy clean drinking water. And so that's part of the way that some of these orphanages can sustain themselves financially, by having an economic component and by becoming a water store. And so we wanted to highlight the fact that this was a water store. So there was a facade improvement component definitely as well. And here was another project with a similar theme. And they started calling this their Water Angels project, Sow a Seed. And I've worked with that organization several times. There's another little water window, which is not open at this point. This is another, I love this project. This is what we call the Gay Cake, which was a project that was conceptualized by my friend Santiago Rodriguez in San Francisco, and it was during the time when Prop 8, which was a law that was which was passed to ban gay marriage. It was on, it was off, gay marriage was okay, it was not okay, and there was a window of time when it was okay, legalized in the city of San Francisco, because the mayor said it was okay. And so Santiago, he came up with this idea, and a number of us, including Lillian Sizemore, Madeline Behrens-Brigham, Jack Dinas, and Randy Casenza, we worked on this project together in a gallery that was open, when people could actually come in and walk around and see what we were doing and hear about what we're doing. And after the cake was finished, it went to City Hall. And so people who got married could then stand up on the cake, like me and Lillian are doing there, and get their pictures taken. And I did want to, Luciana's not here, but I told her that Lil is wearing her apron from the Mosaic Art School, because Lillian and I went to take a class there 15 years ago, and we still wear those aprons. And so that was a wonderful project in San Francisco. This is a project that some of you know about and some of you have already participated in. And it's called the Urbanized Project. It's happening initially in New Orleans. We'll probably be traveling to other cities as well. And it really deals with the concepts of nonviolence and vision and awareness. New Orleans has a lot of social problems, and it's rife with crime. There's a lot of violent crime in New Orleans. There's a lot of good things about New Orleans, but there's a lot of very difficult things as well. And the crime is one of them. And so I designed a mural that had a giant peacock, and I wanted to put eyes in all the feathers. I initially invited the group of people who worked on the urban mosaic intervention in Chile that I had worked with. Hey, do you guys want to make an eye and send it to me, and I'll put it in this mural. And what happened was the call that I said, and you could tell whoever you want. You know, it's not a private thing. And it went totally viral, actually. There's a couple of videos about it on my YouTube channel. But I got just hundreds of packages. I've got about 600 eyes now from 30 countries. The project has become very, very, very large. Initially, we were going to do this wall right here. Here's an example of some of the eyes, lovely, on the bottom left that have been sent. Those are Carrie's eyes. And I started doing outreach with community groups in New Orleans because I realized that, you know, so many of the eyes were coming from outside of New Orleans, and this was a project that also really needed to be grounded in New Orleans. So if you're interested in that project, you can check out the Facebook page there. It's ongoing and now very multifaceted. I'm going to move into art and public health and show some of the work that I worked on in Haiti over the last few years. And art and public health is a subject that's very close to my heart. I feel like it's very, very important to have art in public health settings. And I think that having beautiful things around and actually that and being involved in a creative process is essential to our health. And so I think it really is a public health issue, as well-being is a social justice issue. I think that public health and art are linked. So on this project, I worked at a hospital called Mirabelais Hospital, which was in central Haiti, is in central Haiti. And it was built after the earthquake by an organization called Partners in Health, which is an amazing public health care organization. During that project, we did a large entryway mural, we did a big seat bench and a waiting area, we did a pavement inset, and on these initial projects, I trained a team of 5 Haitian men who have become very important to me in my life, and I think vice versa, and we have a very great working relationship. We went on to do a project in the pediatric ward of this hospital as well. There's actually 18 individual projects throughout the pediatric ward, and what is it? 118 different artists contributed in some way to this project, and I spearheaded the fundraising effort, and we had over 300 people contributed to the fundraising effort for this because there was no money allocated to public art because it was all going towards medical equipment and staff and infrastructure, obviously. And so my goal for this project was to have every kid in every bed be able to look up and see mosaics somewhere. And so I really wanted to spread things out. And so I put a call out to artists who were interested in helping by making a mosaic bird or butterfly based on drawings that kids made in Haiti and in the United States. And those are floating all over the ward as well as other aspects as well. I have tons of pictures of all this stuff on my Facebook pages as well. This is my team, and as far as how important it has been for the people who created this work, I just love this quote by Oscar Jean-Louis, who is to my right. He said how excited, he was like, I got to build beauty. And he said it in a moment where it was so poignant and just really passionate, and it was like all he could do to express like just how proud he was to have been involved in the project. This group, and this is the ripple effect that I like to talk about, has since created their own company called the Mirabelais Mosaic Collective. They've gone after jobs, they've done other hospitals, they've done amazing work. I'm super proud of them. Mario Judy in the yellow shirt has actually started his own other business called Mario Mosaics, and they're very, very committed to continue to do this kind of work. Here's just one of their projects that they did. They got paid, they got shipped across Haiti to go to a very remote village to do these handicap accessible tables at a hospital for spinal cord injury patients, and they trained the patients and they trained the staff to create the projects. So in this question, which I brought up already, what is well-being? You know, the dictionary definition of well-being is pretty basic, being happy, healthy, or successful, but there are different states of well-being, as we know, and I just wanted to kind of show a series of images that show what the creation of mosaics and what looking at mosaics can actually to bring into people's lives. Uh-oh. And I just wanted to mention this. Somebody who is obviously not an artist asked me, why did they need mosaics in Haiti after the earthquake? I mean, wasn't it like, you know, everything was so smashed and devastated? Why do you need art, right? It's okay, that's a good question, but I don't think I need to qualify that to anybody here, but this image is of a girl who was not part of the organization I was working with when I was working on this project, but some of her friends were part of that organization, and they said, hey, our friend is in a tent camp right now. She's 16, she's totally vulnerable. The tent camps were totally violent, creepy, all kinds of crime, not safe for a 16-year-old girl to be staying in a tent by herself. And the organization said, okay, come on, you can be with us for right now, right? And so she came onto the project, and I just like, yeah, I don't even know this girl's name because she rolled out soon after that. But I mean, she's just like, this says to me, just like, let me hang on to this. Let me just hang on to something. Let me just ground out. It will give me something to do, a focus that's outside of this chaos of my life. And that happens very, very often, not only in areas that have devastation, but also any kind of personal difficulties one is having. And I think it really does bring a sense of respite and also pause and mission and all of those symbolic things that are about creating something out of chaos. I'm going to wrap up with showing you some images of the projects that I first started doing in Haiti when I went about 6 months after the earthquake. I was put in touch with Art Creation Foundation for Children by a mutual colleague, and I went down initially to facilitate a memorial mural with the youth who were part of this organization, and that was going to be a mural of a tree of life, which was talked about within the leadership of that organization. ACFFC, Art Creation Foundation for Children, was founded probably about 12 years ago, but what I want to say about this is that it's filled with amazing humans running it as part of it, and it was established way before the earthquake, as I said, about 12 years ago, but because there's so much poverty, obviously we know this in Haiti, some of the criteria for being a part of the organization was that you had one or no parents and that you were eating less than 4 meals a week. And so these kids are coming off the street and out of very, very difficult situations. And so to see them thriving as artists, not just mosaic artists, is just so, it's an amazing thing. So this is the wall that we initially did. And this sort of humble wall, and you can see there's a crack in it from the earthquake, became a massive symbol of hope in the town that we were working in called Jacmel. Where 6 months after the earthquake, nothing was moved. I mean, people took it upon themselves to move the rubble out of the street with their own wheelbarrows and manual labor. But life had to go on. You had to keep feeding your kids. You had to keep, doing as much as you could. And so within the context of this chaos, visual chaos and life disruption and loss of loved ones, there was also some need for some kind of stasis, okay? The schools were not happening. People, the jobs were gone. People's businesses were gone. And so there was a real desire on the part of the constituency of this organization to do something, right? To make something. And so we did the design on that wall, and then spent the next week and a half creating the mosaic. And what happened during this time is that this area became a focal point for lots of people in the town because it was something that was being built. It was something that was being created. There was color happening there. The guys that have the motorcycle taxis, they would gather around, like huge groups would gather around while we were working on this. And the young man in the middle, he has gone on to become the leader of the Mosaic team of ACFFC, and he's been to the States twice to work as an production assistant in my studio. And so he's an amazing kid. He's learning English right now, and he puts a lot of his heart and soul into leading the team through that organization now. Here's some pictures of the progress of that project. So the initial mural was a 17-foot mural of a tree of life. That mural ended up growing into a 350-foot long mural that wrapped all the way around the block in the town. We just kept going and going and going. And the kids, once I taught them how to do it, I was like, okay, now we're going to do some training on design development. Now we're going to do some training on transferring the image. And so I was sort of like gradually passing the baton to this group of older teens and teenagers so that they could manage the project as it went along, which they did with amazing grace. And I think this is a great quote. This is from Michou Jusant, who is a young woman who is part of the Mosaic team. And this was a quote that came up on Nickelodeon News that did a special on Haiti after the earthquake. And they wanted to do a story on hope in Haiti. And they were like, they told me this later, we couldn't find anything. They said we Googled hope in Haiti. And they looked through and they found Art Creation Foundation for Children, like through their Google search. And then they saw what we were up to, and they came and they did a little story on the wall. That's linked on my website if you're interested in watching it. But art helps us escape from whatever problems we have. The mosaic mural represents that Haiti will still grow, will be rebuilt, and we believe that whatever change happens started with this wall. So that's an intense, statement there. But the attachment of the youth and the adults actually that were working on the project was very, very strong. So this actually turned into Tree of Life. It turned into like the sea spirits. It turned into flora and fauna of Haiti. It turned into carnival masks. So there was houses, traditional architecture. So there was a real cultural component that grew out of that. To have everything on this wall was about Jacmel and their experience. And so it became a tourist attraction. There were no tourists really in Haiti, but all people who were like aid workers and coming from other countries would come for a break in Jacmel. Jacmel is like a seaside town. It's very known for the arts and music. And the wall, as people were calling it, became this place where people would go and get their picture taken. And it was like, wow, there's something going on here. And it really made an impression. This Haitian person does not live in Jacmel at all. And this shows you even just part of that wall. Also, as far as economic impact, there were, as I said, it's a town full of artists and musicians, and there were a lot of artists that used to sell their paintings and their wares and their crafts and stuff in Jacmel to people who came to visit. And after the earthquake, no more tourism, of course, and but after that wall came up, I saw these guys all the time, and I was like, hey guys, do you think that this wall being there has improved your personal ability to sell your art, like your personal economy? And they were like, totally. Now we can drag our paintings and stuff out to this wall where we know all these people are gonna come and have their pictures taken. And so it actually touched other places for other artists as well who weren't directly involved in the making of it. Through the making of the Jacmel Memorial Mosaic Wall, we started a program called Mosaic Jacmel through Art Creation Foundation for Children. They got several grants, including a large one from the EU, which allowed us to launch Mosaic Jacmel, through which the kids have created over 30 mosaic murals and plazas all over their town. It's become just like infiltrated with mosaics everywhere. And so much so that the Board of Tourism in Jacmel now uses this mosaic-y thing as part of their logo to draw people back to Jacmel, which I think is just pretty awesome as a ripple effect. And I will end there.